We are. Hey, we are at the store. Mama's gonna get her wallet and just leave everything in the car.
Hey, Lindsay, can you
Let's
hear
go
me?
get some.
Okay, I think she turned it off. If all of you could mute your microphones, and then whenever you're ready to speak, you can unmute. We'll just wait a few moments for her to mute. Okay, we'll get started. Thank you all for joining. So we'll just start with a quick connect inward just to get started, just a few moments, and then we'll do some slides, and then we'll end with a meditation. Okay, so just you can close your eyes or you can keep them open if you prefer that, but just take a few breaths to get centered, just noticing your breath. Letting your body be comfortable and find a position that's comfortable. And with each exhale, intend to let go a bit more. Intending to relax and let go of everything and be present for this right now. Bringing your awareness inwardly, either in the heart center or in the belly or in the point between the eyebrows. Intending to be open and receptive and creating a quantum entanglement in your relationship. And that our work in these meditations have a positive influence on our relational fields. And just let that go and take another full breath. Giving gratitude for all the aspects of ourselves that are useful in this work and for all of our non-physical assistance available to us in this process and for its assistance in our relationships as well. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay, we'll get started. Thank you all for being here and sticking with this. I appreciate it. So we'll go through a few slides and then we'll do questions if there's any. And then we'll end with the next meditation for the next phase. So we don't have as many as last time because we're getting through it. But we'll talk more about the intentions that we're going to be starting in the meditations now. So just revisiting the whole aspect of human relationships and that it's definitely in the category of energy and non-matter because relationships are energetic and they do consist of a relational field and they are influenced by quantum science. So the main question is how can this relational field be influenced in some positive way using quantum science, using what we know from quantum science? And can we shift out of the more classical physics, Newtonian determinism, that predictability, that certainty that we find there, and harness more quantum probabilities and possibilities? So the main topics we'll cover today is the relational field, conditioning and intention and how that works with quantum physics, and steps to setting intentions. So we'll start adding intentions into our relationship, into our meditations every day. So last time we ran through the basics of quantum science, non-locality, which is a non-signal based communication, discontinuity, which is the quantum leap, and then quantum entanglement, which is what this whole project is about. That it's a tangled hierarchical relationship where one feeds and causes the other equally. It's not a one-way thing. When you change, it changes. When the field changes, you and the partner changes. It's interrelational. And so we did this image last time. It's not like from me to you. It's more like the hands where one is drawing the other and the other is drawing the first. It's very much interconnected, which is what our goal is in these relational field experiences. And we did this slide already. I just wanted to throw it in here just to review, just to remind us why we're doing this and that it does work and that that mix of quantum and Newtonian is definitely in the mind and in our thoughts because there's very tiny gaps between the nerve cells in the brain. And that means that there's quantum activity there and in many other parts of the body and happenings in the body. But in our brain and in our thinking and our emotions, we're definitely able to access the quantum there. So that can motivate us to help us, when we're not seeing the effects yet. Um, so we'll touch on some research about relational fields. This first section of research is about the therapeutic field. Um, so it's not directly related to couples. It's more about what happens in the therapy room, but it's relevant because of what this research found. So it's about the concept of a psychological field which holds the therapist and the patient in a morphic resonance. What happens in therapy is not just because of the unconscious driving factors of the patient or the client, but it's also the interaction between the patient and the therapist and the therapeutic setting. So this body of research has found some interesting things regarding chaos in the field, and it has shown that it's actually chaos that brings evolution in higher forms of organization, not equilibrium or homeostasis or, things as we are used to experiencing them. And this builds a case for the whole idea that there's a purpose of movement of consciousness being the driving factor of growth in a relational field. So when we start talking about couples, there's another body of research, particularly on the relational field between couples. So a couple has both a conscious relationship and an unconscious relationship. The unconscious relationship is often more complex, but also more meaningful, and it explains the conflicts that come up in the conscious relationship, like wrongdoings or blaming the other person or communication issues. So this body of research on the relational field of couples points to an interactive field which contains the process that two people experience and the ways that it changes them and the ways that it changes, the ways that the field changes and the way the field changes the two people. So, a quote from the writings on that research is an alchemical approach to the relationship further entails establishing the existence of a interactive field as not belonging exclusively to either person, and most significantly recognizing that the field has its own goal-oriented autonomy achieved through dynamic processes that link order and disorder. So this suggests that the work should be done on the field of the relationship, not exclusively on the individual people. And this approach is more efficient because the field contains both parties and it has a faster effect because you're involving the energetics and consciousness itself. And I've seen many examples in working with individuals and with couples, indicating a relational field. It's common for both people to know what the other is thinking when they are feeling more connected. A feeling of oneness, connectedness, alignment, easier conversations, and agreements, synchronicities are more common in those times. So that all points to the existence of this field that these researchers are talking about and exploring. So results that you might see in a relationship, the relationship as a field changes and both partners are supposed to experience some change. Now we do have conditioning, we have conditioning individually. There's conditioning that happens in the relationship itself. So inner transformation changes conditioning individually and in the pair. And it can be a not very pleasant experience because we are comfortable in conditioning, even though it might not be useful to us anymore. So most people have at least one area of life, and for many people, it's a relationship that facilitates this opportunity to transform because there's a problem or it's so uncomfortable that we become willing to do something different outside of our comfort zone in order to get some sort of different result. And so in alchemy, we talked about that. I think in the first Zoom that we had about inner alchemy or inner transformation and the metaphor of the medieval alchemy the attempts to turn lead to gold as being a metaphor for psychological transformation. So they talk about a foundry, like a heat source that is hot enough to change the things that are really solid and fixed in us. Um, and often that is a relationship that heats things up so much to change things that are so foundational from our childhood. Um, and regardless of the catalyst, whether it's a relationship or something else, an illness, a death of someone, a loss of a job, whatever it is, entering these deeper aspects of the self reveals and makes accessible um, expansions of consciousness in our life. So when we're talking about conditioning, that falls more in the category of classical physics or Newtonian physics, which is deterministic. You can be certain about some things. So our conditioning is like the ego's attempt to be certain about something in our thinking or in our approach or our perspective, whereas quantum physics is more about probability. So there's a couple of points from quantum physics that I wanted to add in here. A particle can exist in a superposition of multiple states simultaneously. So superposition just means more than one position at a time. So an electron might be in two energy levels at one time or two different places at once. And when it's measured or observed, the superposition collapses into one of the possibilities. And so it's important for us to think about that with our own thoughts and our own states of being. Because we're accessing the quantum, we need to think about it not so deterministic in one way only, but multiple possibilities and probabilities that eventually collapse into one of those, but it's more probabilistic. It's more about the probabilities than conditioned thinking is. So our pathways in our mind are like a river. Changing your conditioning is like changing the course of a river. A new path has to be carved and repeated. And this is the Newtonian part, because remember, it's an intersection of the two. We are both. So we do have to recondition ourselves, but we also have to access the other possibilities that are available from the quantum realities. So changing how you perceive, changing how you measure your experiences. Um, so I really like this quote from Richard Bartlett. Um, Beyond all judgments, beyond all measuring, beyond all understanding, and into the void, there is something far greater than you. If you can get into that space, even for the blink of an eye, you are done. That is where the miracles happen. And that's what we're attempting to do in these meditations, is to access that in-between place, that void place within you, that quantum space, so that you can get out of conditioning, so that you can just be in that nothingness where there are other possibilities that your conditioning hasn't considered yet that might fit what you're wanting better than the conditioning that you are familiar with. So moving on to intention. Intention is really important in the quantum realm. And I'm throwing this slide in from last time too, just because it's so important with this topic. And since we're starting this part of the process. So one can affect quantum events in the mind and in the body, because that's how our neurology works. It's how our cells work. The quantum is involved in those places. And intention does affect the quantum, but it doesn't affect the Newtonian, because that's deterministic. It's already determined. So there's a step-by-step process that we're going to follow with setting intentions to keep us out of doing this from a place of conditioning. So the first step is that, and you've already been doing this in meditations, but we're just going to be really mindful about it moving forward, because this part is more, we wanted the beginning stages to focus more on you and your process of going inward and letting go and accessing that in between state, um, before we started adding intentions. So the first step is that you're going to have awareness in the heart center. Most of us have our awareness in the mind most of the time. We don't even realize it. We don't even realize where our awareness is, because most of the time that's where we are required to be. But in meditation, if we can start at least with awareness in the heart, and that is just noticing that space. That is just having a very light awareness in the heart. It's not a super focus, because if you're super focused, you're probably still holding your awareness in the mind. And part of that is just letting go and trusting in the creation process, and that there is a quantum reality, and that it doesn't work the same way as the Newtonian. So we're not going to know everything ahead of time, and we're not going to, know exactly how it works. So part two is invoking all the aspects of yourself that can be helpful to you and your non-physical assistants. And I always add into that. You can do this however you want. This is just how I do it. In infinite and unconditional love, infinite intelligence, and infinite empowerment. That way, um, it's all the good things, all the good things of the guidance that we need in this process, since we're kind of entering into the unknown. And then the third part is stating the intention. It's stating it, and it's not stating it in a negative way. It's not, I want to get rid of this communication problem between me and my partner. It's I'm intending for what it is that I want. And we'll go through that in the next slide, but we're stating it in a way that is all about the outcome that we are looking for, not about what we don't want. And then the last step is feeling it, and feel and be as though it's done, as though it is complete. That thing has happened already. Because remember, we're in the quantum. No, it hasn't happened in the Newtonian and the manifested reality yet, but we have to create it energetically first. It has to exist in consciousness, in your consciousness first. And remember, you're accessing the field. So it has to exist in the consciousness of the field in order to manifest in material reality. So part of feeling and being as though it's complete is giving gratitude. Gratitude that it exists already, and you're just trusting that because you're intending it, it exists in consciousness. And then letting it go and trusting in the creation process, and that there are many possibilities and probabilities, most likely, of how this can come to be. And it may not be as we expect, because again, that's conditioning, that's expectations, that's in the Newtonian realm. So in intention setting, it for our particular purposes, it's that the intention is for the field of the relationship to improve. We're not going to specifically intend for someone to uh, start communicating better, or you can certainly intend that, but in these meditations, we're experimenting with the field and improvement and evolution overall, and trusting that it's going to cover all these more specific wants. So sometimes when you can get out of the details, instead of intending that so and so stops drinking or starts doing laundry or whatever, whatever the thing is, to not be so locked in on the conditioned intention that we've been thinking about for so long. It's more about the energetics of the connection to evolve in ways that we might not understand. So, for the evolution of the relational field in a way that supports the thriving of everyone involved, in a way that supports the optimal path of everyone involved. And so you see it's general enough to cover, it's specific enough, but it's general enough too, to hold the unknown, which is an important part. Um, so see you and your partner as an extension of this relational field. Intentions are most powerful when they are inspired. So if you feel this intuitive expansion and, a flash, follow it, use that as part of your intention. And meditations also are most powerful when they come from inspiration. And you can even start your meditations if you have time to like give yourself a few moments to think about something that inspires you, or if you're able to go outside and look at something that inspires you, the sunrise or a flower or animals or whatever, the sunset and at golden hour. If there's anything that gives you a bit of expansion, you can use that as inspiration for your meditations. And also, as we're moving through this, and some of you are having some really interesting synchronicities and meaningful experiences. And so just kind of pondering the question, are there any additional abilities arising? Am I suddenly feeling a bit of delight, or am I experiencing more synchronicities? Any increase in sensitivities can be really important for the creation process because they may not seem like they mean much, but it means that you're noticing that connectability more, and that can be really important as you evolve through this. Because if you're noticing things that might not seem very important or very meaningful for any significant change, there's more to come, and you're increasing in your sensitivity, which is good. And here's just a few examples of how we can create an entanglement. You can create a quantum entanglement with yourself, connecting with wiser parts of your own consciousness, an organizing principle in your own life. That's really beautiful and supportive and meaningful and changes the way we experience our life. You can create a quantum entanglement between you and another person, which is what the focus of this is. More coherence, more collaboration between yourself and another, synchronicity, resonance, alignment without all the, heavy work. Um, and also a bigger quantum entanglement with a unified field, just in general, becoming able to experience and expanding oneness with others in general, not just your person, with your goals, with the outside world, with the universe, a higher power, whatever you want to call it. Um, so this sort of entanglement that we're working on can be felt in many, many ways in your life, in ways that feel really meaningful and big, and in small ways, and that those are really meaningful too, because it means that it's happening. And when you start to notice it, then you can enjoy it more and use that more. So that's the end of the slides. Are there any questions or questions about this information, questions about your experiences in meditation, anything at all? Okay, so we will do a meditation, and we're going to do it's similar in some ways to what we've been doing.
Allison, I
Yeah,
have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have been meditating more in a reclined state,
Yeah.
and I'm falling asleep every single time. Um, but whenever I am seated, it's like I can't feel the energy in my pelvis. So
Really
yes, it's really hard. Um,
interesting.
but if I'm reclined,
Then you can
I
feel
feel
it.
it a lot. Yeah.
I
Do you have a
actually share
suggestion?
Lindsay's experience.
Yeah,
Okay.
interesting. And so, I mean, I don't see a problem with you meditating while you're reclining. Okay, this I'm curious, do either of you feel, okay, when you're laying down doing the meditation and you can feel the sensation in the pelvis, are you able to feel it moving up towards the head while you're laying
Yes.
Yes.
down? Okay,
Yes.
great, great.
The problem is I fall asleep.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, that's
always
Me
okay.
too. Lindsay, same here.
cool.
I think that's okay because you're getting there, you know, and then you go to sleep. So that's okay. You know, before you are going to sleep, there's that in between place where you're getting out of your conditioned thinking. So that's the goal, you know, to feel the sensation of the energy moving around in the body and be in tune with that. Which is different from what we're normally paying attention to in our mind. So I think that's okay, even though you're falling asleep.
Okay, great.
And that it might change over time. You know, you might get to the point where you can sit and feel that sensation, but as long as it's more effective laying down, I would keep doing that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We're all different.
I have different question,
Sure.
Allison. So your slide is self and then self other. Wouldn't once you achieve the self and then the self other, wouldn't it lead to unified field?
Yeah, I think
Or are those separate, distinct dichotomies? It's
not really. I mean, I think some people have a harder time with certain aspects of this. I think once you build this sort of connection with yourself, then it is easier with other people and it is easier to feel connected to oneness and all. Um, but some people report more difficulty with people rather than the unified field, or with more difficulty with the unified field versus
hmm,
people in their life. So, you know, everybody's different and, you know, whatever reasons or past traumas or experiences that contribute to that. Um, but yes, once you feel that connection in one of these areas, I think it translates much easier to the other areas and it can kind of all happen at once. But for somebody who has, you know, that's not necessarily across the board because we're all different and we have different pasts. So someone might have a specific block in some area, but I think in general, once it's felt, it's easier to feel it in all of those areas because you're connected beyond conditioning. You're connected
hmm.
to the the oneness and the unified field, which is what, you know, connects us to any other person, makes us feel that different sort of connection that we don't have to work so hard for. So are y'all starting to um be able to feel the sensations in the meditations like in your body? Um and are y'all noticing towards the end of the meditations when the energy's moving up to the head, um is it becoming more of like a pervasive feeling, like a not so focused on moving up the spine to the head, but a more pervasive experience, like not really connected to the body? Is anybody having that sort of experience?
On occasion.
So in those times, you can let go of the process, you know, the process of the building of the breath, the building of the sensation in the pelvic area, the movement up. If you know, after a few rounds of that, if you feel, you know, more of a pervasive feeling in the head or all over the body, then you can let go of the imagery of moving up the spine to the head and just enjoy that pervasive feeling or sensation. And at that, moving on at that point in the meditations towards the end, we're going to be adding an intention um, for the field of the relationship to evolve in useful useful ways for everyone involved. So you won't have to do the meditation, the intention in the meditation every time, because if it starts to feel redundant or you're, getting tired of it, take a break from it, because the whole point is to get beyond the feelings, the especially conditioned feelings and thoughts. So it's okay to not do it every day. But it's important to make the focus on the field, the energy itself, not so focused on the other person changing. So,
So I have a question,
sure,
Allison. I've got a question about. Um, I can honestly say I don't feel a big change during the meditations. I'm just trusting it's happening.
perfect.
Is that, I mean, is that all I need to do is just keep
Yes,
trusting it's there, even if I don't feel it?
yes, because it is. Your intention is doing it. And some people
Okay.
don't feel anything. Some people feel
Yeah.
nothing. And that does not mean that nothing is happening. It's just we're all built differently. We all have different levels of sensitivities in certain areas. There's this really powerful healer that I know of that feels nothing, never feels anything while he's healing people, but people get better. Whereas
Okay.
his teacher had a different experience. He could feel the energy of other people and feel energy, his own energy, and the intersection of the two, and changes in the other person's energy field. Um, but his student, who is a very powerful healer, feels absolutely nothing. But people get better. So it is changing, um, and it's not contingent on what you uh, feel in a physical sense.
Yeah, it's good to know that because it feels like I have a blockage and I don't believe I have a blockage, but that is what it leads me to conclude that there's
Right.
something stopping me from feeling it.
Yeah, you
No.
may just not have that sort of an experience, which is fine. And you
Okay.
might see other indications in other ways later that show you that there are things happening. It's just not felt in that way that other people report.
Okay. Thank you.
So I think that's why my answer is Asian, because sometimes, just like Kathy, I don't feel anything that's happened. And just what had Lindsay had indicated, last night I was doing my meditation and I fell asleep. I didn't, Kathy, I swore nothing was happening. But a couple of hours later, it turns out that I had fallen asleep and my awareness was up there. So it's very curious. You don't think anything is happening, but I at least I didn't.
Yep.
But it
People,
was there.
yeah, people will say, that your energy field extends. So
Yes.
your awareness can be there. You can,
I
feel.
amazed myself.
That's incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
Waking up after 2 hours in the middle of the night, I said, "Oh my goodness, this is."
You had a 2-hour meditation. That's great. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, then we'll start the meditation so that we can finish at 6. But if anybody has anything else, we'll do that first. I'll put a little background on. Okay, so you can find a comfortable spot like we did in the beginning. Close your eyes if you want. Start to reconnect with your breathing, noticing your inhales, noticing your exhales, noticing the pause in between the inhales and the exhales. And just follow this breathing like this for a bit without trying to change the pattern, just being in tune with it, just observing. Evoke the presence of all the aspects of ourself that can be useful to us, and all the aspects of our non-physical assistance, infinite, unconditional love, infinite intelligence, and infinite empowerment. To be present with us and assist us in this meditation and in our journey as a whole. Giving gratitude for that presence and assistance. Having the awareness in the heart center. As you continue to breathe. If your limbs are crossed, you might find it helpful to uncross them. Move your awareness to the pelvic area. With your awareness in the pelvic area as you inhale and as you exhale. Upon inhale, expanding. And upon exhale, bringing the belly a little closer to the spine. On inhale, imagine energetics filling the lower abdomen, filling all the nooks and crannies. And on exhale, you might have a sensation of the pelvic floor moving up a bit, and you may not. Either one is fine. Just follow this pattern for a bit. Inhaling, expanding in the belly, exhaling, the belly comes closer to the spine. Maintaining the awareness in the pelvic area, building the energy. On inhale, maintain the awareness in the pelvic area, a sense of expansion. And on exhale, you can move the awareness to the base of the spine, starting at the base of the spine and moving upward on each exhale. On inhale, focus in the pelvic area. On exhale, focus on the base of the spine, moving upwards towards the head. Whether you feel it or not, your intention is moving your awareness, which is moving the energetics. You don't have to feel anything. And you can imagine the movement of energy upwards being like a serpent, just as a metaphor for the way the energy moves. So on the inhale, the building of the energy in the pelvic area. On the exhale, the awareness as a serpent, like energy, moving from the base of the spine all the way to the top of the head. As that energy reaches the head, it expands over the two hemispheres of the brain, like the head of a cobra. So that energy is folding over both sides of the brain, encompassing all of the brain. On inhale, still holding that awareness in the pelvic area, a sense of expansion. On exhale, a movement of that serpent-like energy all the way up to the top of the head, expanding over both sides like the hood of a cobra. And keep following this pattern, inhaling and exhaling, visualizing the serpent. And if it gets to a point where you feel a pervasive sensation, you can just let go of that image and just notice the sensation, the pervasive energy and connectedness. Now we'll bring in our intention for the purposeful evolution of your relational field that you are in. The evolution of this field in a way that brings an expansion of consciousness, a thriving for everyone involved. In inspiring ways, surprising ways that feel good for me. And now just feel and be as though that is complete. In a way that fulfills all the needs, known and unknown. And give gratitude as though it's done. And truly let that go as though it's done. It exists in consciousness. We'll bring our awareness back into the heart and give gratitude to all the parts of ourself and all the parts of our non-physical assistance that might be beyond ourself. Gratitude for this creation and its existence. Let it all go and come back to the breath. And then bringing your awareness back to the body or your environment. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay, so any questions or comments about that, or questions about adding the intention part? So you can now do, if you're using the Tom Kenyon, the professionally done meditations, you can do number 1, 2, 3, or 4. And his do not include an intention at the end, but you can add that because there's quiet time in there at the end. So you can just add that part. You're already gonna be centered. So you can just at that point towards the end state your intention for the evolution of the field in a way that benefits all involved, ways that are known and unknown, something like that, general enough, but specific enough. And be in a heart-centered place with that intention, and then let it go, feeling as though it's done and giving gratitude. And then that's it. That's the only thing to add. Just have that intention about the field itself, and try to leave out or redirect yourself, or just let go, don't give too much thought to thoughts that pop in that seem more conditioned. Might be feelings of resentment or memories of the past or fears about the future. And so it's fine and expected, that things like that will arise as you're, because some of it might be clearing out. You might be letting some things go. So you might become more aware of it. So just try not to focus on those things, but focus on what your intention is, and the creation of that and letting go of it. The most important thing in setting an intention or making a creation is the letting go part. That's the most important part. And then if you are using the meditations on YouTube, then I'm going to add one that is more focused on the serpent imagery of the energy, and with an intention at the end. But you can use any of the ones that are up there. If you get forward with one, the one that we're on, you don't have to just stick with the one that we're on right now. You can do others, as long as there's the movement of the energy and the intention for the field of the relationship. So if there's no other questions, we can finish there. And I do need all the October monthly check-ins. If you haven't done that, fill that out. It won't take long, just a few minutes to reflect on the month. But that's how we're collecting the data on a monthly basis. And just be tracking November so that at the close of November, you can do your monthly check-in for November. And then at some point in the near future, once we kind of get in the swing of things with the intention setting, I'll send out the midway questionnaire, the longer one, the one that you filled out at the beginning. So we'll do that midway through and then at the end when we close. All right. Well, thank you all very much for your continued dedication to this. I greatly appreciate it and could not do this without all of you. So thank you very much. And let me know if you have any questions. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.